Hey, good people. Sammy Ash here, Executive Director of the Ash Academy, and your host of our Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. Our Mentors and Mimosas Gala is fast approaching October 16th, 2021. That's Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. VIP is the 10 to 11. Be sure to get your tickets for this beautiful fundraising event supported by California Teachers Association, Embrace Foundation, and Liars Spirit Company, just to name a few. We'll be celebrating this amazing year with brunch, silent auction, and wine pull. Plus, our featured speakers include Michael Hill, Steve Robinson, Sonia Iris Losada, and our keynote, Kern Woods. Our MC is Miyoshi Price, and we're all going to have a wonderful time. I really wish to see all of you there, and I'll see you in the VIP. Now, if you're not going to be in the LA area, that doesn't mean you can't join us. That just means you can grab a virtual ticket and check out all the live stream opportunities there. Now, let's get started with the show. Hey, good people. Sammy Ash here. Welcome back to another episode of the Ash Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. Today we are joined by Stacy Milner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is a long overdue conversation with Stacy. I will say we know her through ITMA. Shout out to our partners. So let's get into your introduction, and then we will have a conversation about all this good stuff. So Stacy Milner is an entertainment industry veteran who began her career working as the executive assistant to the chairman of NBC and Paramount Pictures. She is the founder and CEO of Executive Temps, a premier employment agency that has exclusively served the entertainment industry for over 30 years. Her latest venture, the Entertainment Industry College Outreach Program, EICOP, and its signature program, HBCU in LA. That is a very illustrious career. So I would love to talk about it, but let's go back to the beginning. Like, what does your journey to the arts look like?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for that nice introduction. I appreciate it. It's kind of hard to think that I've done all that stuff already, but I guess I am really that old. But at any rate, way
You
back in
look
the day when
great.
I,
You look
gee,
great, though. There we
thank you,
go.
thank you. When I first got into this business, it was all by accident. I had no idea what I wanted to do in anything. I just know I didn't want to stay in my factory town in Dayton, Ohio. So my aunt came to Ohio on government business. And I said to her, I'm going back to California with you because I had come on vacation like a couple years before. And my cousin worked at NBC and she was a page where they were giving tours behind the scenes. And I was like, this is a job. And she was like, yeah, if you ever come back, like maybe you can come on, become a page. And I'm like, okay. So I made note and I told my aunt after I graduated from high school, I said, I'm going to go back to California with you, gain residency, go to school. But, that's what I want to do. And she said, I'll believe it when you're on the plane next to me. And next thing you know, I made my reservation and I showed her my ticket and I said, I'm going back to California with you. And I came to
Wow.
California and my cousin introduced me to the folks over at NBC. She worked there for years and made the introduction and I got hired. And before I knew it, I was walking around the sound stages on the NBC lot and never looked back.
Wow. Okay. So that's a lot. Two things pop out to me. So, like, exposure is super important because that makes it real. As soon as someone else that looks like you or is close enough to you, like relationship wise, you're like, okay, like that's attainable. Someone else is
Yeah.
doing it. Not to downplay how they got there and whatever background they have, but like I could do that too if I maybe follow in their footsteps or they can let me know that way. Um, did you have any, I guess, professors or mentors along the way that would just make you open enough to consider like, I'm gonna do it.
Well,
Next step
oddly
is the next
enough,
step.
I really didn't think about this until years later. But when I was in seventh or eighth grade, I had an English teacher, and I hated that I can't even remember her name. Her face I can see, her name I cannot remember. But she was very impactful on me. So she and another teacher, who I think she must have been a math teacher, but anyway, they wanted to take me and another classmate of mine to a local television station. And in Ohio, there was a show that came on in the afternoons after school called the Howdy Doody Show. And so she took us to the station, and we got to be a part of the live audience and see like cameras and how they did show. And I was like, this is fascinating. Never connected it when I went to California on vacation and was at NBC. And then years later, I'm thinking, you know what? That made such an impression on me because number one, those teachers were cool. She picked me up in a convertible and put the top down, and was just starting to get winter, but we had a scarf around us, and it was just this very cool, sexy thing. And it was just like made me feel a certain way, you know? And it was like, there's this woman, you know, Black woman who's successful. She's a teacher. She's taking me to this thing. So I think it was all of that that kind of was like, I don't know, it was a combination of that. And I just really had no fear. I knew I did not want to work in a factory town. And I just wanted to get out. I saw the life cycle. And once I exposed myself to something, which wasn't even intentional, but needless to say, that exposure is what gave me what I needed to then have the strength to do what I'm doing and make that leap, you know? I mean, otherwise, I mean, and I had a soft place to land. I had family that I could come out here and be with and make this launch into this industry.
Beautiful, beautiful. Shout out to family. That's always
Oh yeah.
super important,
Oh yeah.
especially for us when we're trying to break in. So, what would you say was like your big break into the industry? Was it just like that first gig or that first job, or like was there a position that you got to and you're like, okay, like this is it?
Yeah. Well, actually, I would say that the launch was definitely becoming a page in that page program, because that exposed me to all the, you know, aspects of the network. Because also as a page, you would then be assigned to go work in a division, right? So maybe I was working in corporate traffic, and or I was working down in the story department where they read scripts and potential submissions for story ideas, or working in programming and development. So you got a chance to kind of spend time in between giving tours and working, filling audience seats for, you know, shows that were on the lot. But I think it was being inside of those offices as well that kind of like, ooh, I like, yeah, I want to move from that over to this. And then I ended up going for a job with at the time, the director of the Movie of the Week department, a man by the name of Hamilton Cloud. And he was a man of color, went to Yale, and the president of the network at the time, he went to Yale. So they were like Yaley brothers, right? And so I had no idea their connection, but he ended up hiring me, and I became his assistant. And my mother told me, honey, if you learn how to, at the time, everybody don't say this anymore, but be a secretary, you know, you can type, you can answer phones, you'll always have a job. So everybody and their brother in the page department was actually vying for this job. And I went and I met with this guy. I spent an hour with him. And at the end, he's like, when is your birthday? Because we celebrate birthdays. But I think that was like my big break to being in that coveted, you know, what we called at the time the admin building's second floor. That's where all the brass of the studios resided. And that's where all the decisions were made. And I was in that circle now. And I think that probably is the thing that really opened the door for me. And, you know, the rest is history, because from there, I just kept moving up.
Awesome. Well, speaking of keep on moving up, where did you find it was necessary to make a next step in your career? I know that's a pretty
Well,
vague question and huge and heavy question, but like, when do people decide where the next step for them to where you need to leave an organization? Is very interesting to me because I have had to let my coworkers know that this is not the end all be all ever for me. This This could be
Yeah.
just one era of my life. I enjoy working with you, but may very well move on, and you got to
Right.
be okay with that. So,
That's great. Well, look, for me, I learn through process, right? If I'm not learning anymore, if it's not challenging me, it's time to move on. And so I had gotten to the place where, I'm now 17 years in, right? And I moved up all the way to, supporting the CEO of a major network and a major studio. And I realized that there was more in me. Like there were things that I just, was ready to do, and I wasn't learning anymore. And so I finally went to my chairman at the time and I said, "Hey, look, I think I need to make a move." And he was like, "Oh my God, like what are you talking about?" I'm like, "I think I've learned everything that I want to learn." Well, what do you want? Do you want to be an executive? Just tell us what you want to do. I just don't want you to leave the company. And so I said, "Well, I think I really want to go home and join my husband with our staffing agency." And he said, "Take 6 months off." Got 6 months off. And I think at the time it was 3 months. Take 3 months off. Let me tell you, I had not been home with children doing all the stuff that I was fortunate to have a nanny doing. And when I got home, that 3 months went by like that. So
mm,
I go back after 3 months and we have a conversation. I'm like, he's like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Well, take another 3 months off." I had 6 months off to
mm.
figure it out. Now, everybody don't get that, right? But I know how privileged I was in that. But I took those 6 months and I went back and I said, "Look," I said, "I just think I'm done. I'm going to join my husband in the business. There's some other things that I want to do." And he totally gave me his blessings and I left. And boy, am I glad that I did, because I did not know all that was in me to do. And so I'm honored that I got a chance to make a transition properly and move and go into another level. And I encourage anyone, and I tell students even now that I have to mentor. If you're not learning, you've reached a peak and there's no more for you to learn. It's becoming rote. It's time to move on.
That's super important. And I've told people on the podcast before, when it gets to that point, I might be a toxic coworker. I'm because I'm just gonna feel like I have more in me. I would like to do different things, and the longer it takes for me to transition and move on, the more I'm just not going to like being there and whatnot. And I'm still going to be pleasant. Like there's, I'm not going to be nasty or anything, but just my aura is not going to be that of someone that
Yeah.
really wants to be there long term. Like that's just
Yeah.
really is. And people have to be okay with that. Like you love your coworker. Do you have my number? I mean it.
I'm a phone call away.
There we go. You can text me.
But before we ruin this relationship, let me move.
There we go. Exactly. See, Stacy understands me, y'all.
I get
So,
it.
so, what would you say during that time after you've transitioned and you're really good on that new venture, um, that things got, I guess, rewarding? What was the most rewarding part of moving on to your own?
um, Seeing your own vision come to life. There are things in us, and I think also too, just learning like where my passion and my strength was, because for so long I was focused on giving and doing what was needed in the day-to-day job, that I wasn't focused on where my strength was and what I could give. And so I think, realizing that was super super rewarding for me. And I just learned who I was. I thought, I mean, also there's a part of you where you feel like, yeah, I don't know if I have what it takes, or there's a little confidence lacking and all these other things. But when you actually have a vision for something and then you get a chance to see that thing come to life, and pour into yourself the way you poured into others, like, man, it's amazing. It's amazing. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah.
Everybody at the Ash Academy internal team has, in some way or other, either heard me cry or seen me cry, just because I'm so grateful when things come together and like literally, this is an idea.
So when like things are real, like your dreams are taking up space in reality. Like that's touching. That's
Oh,
literally.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, even, and I say, because oftentimes I'll have a lunch meeting with a group of students that are in the program. And, they'll ask me what's the most rewarding thing. And I'll say, sitting here looking at you all, because you were in my mind's eye. And today I'm sitting here looking through the window and seeing you all. Like, I'm impacting you because of a vision that I had inside of me. And now I'm able to, see it manifest. I mean, there's nothing like it. There's nothing else that can equal what that high is like. And it's not even for selfish reason. It's more because I know within myself there's good that I wanted to bring. There's impact that I wanted to create, and I'm getting to do that. And that is like, whoo, that is so much fun. So much fun.
Absolutely. All right, not to burst your bubble, but to dry the tears or the glassiness on my eyes. What's the most challenging part? What is difficult? When does it get hard and make you want to think about quitting? Well, let's not say actually quit, but like, you know what? Maybe it's time to hang it up. Because
Well,
we all have
listen,
those days, those Mondays and those Wednesdays and those Fridays.
we definitely have them. And when you are an entrepreneur, and you are a visionary, with big dreams, and I always say this too: if your dream doesn't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. So it needs to scare you, right? And my dream definitely scares me a lot at times, because I'm like, girl, you bit off a lot. So, but it's okay. But then there are those days where I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't have time for this, don't have time for that. You have the challenges, right? Of, you know, they don't believe it, they're not buying it. I'm scraping nickels, and I'm like, I was good before I decided I was going to do all this wonderful, impactful stuff. Like, I could just turn around and leave. So I often tease, but my husband hates it when I do it. But you remember the people in the Bible, they were in the wilderness and they're like, Moses, what you bring us out here for? We were better back in Egypt. And so I have those moments where sometimes I'm like, I want to turn and go back to Egypt, because I'm like, woo, this is too much. But it's the challenges of, raising money, keeping it all afloat, keeping it at a level of excellence. It's a grind constantly. And sometimes you just want off the hamster wheel, honestly. But you still have to see the vision before you that keeps you going. But I would be totally dishonest if I didn't say, man, there are plenty of challenges that I have faced, that has made me want to give up. But there's a never quit in me, that even though I'm having a down moment and a down day, 2 days from now, what was I crying about? What was I upset about? Get up, dust yourself off, keep going. Like, you're not a quitter.
Absolutely. Come on,
Yeah.
Pastor Stacy. You- Come on. Okay, so let's talk about HBCU in LA, because I am really excited for it. But tell everybody from like what it is and then what you guys have planned. Because
Awesome. Well, so the Entertainment Industry College Outreach Program is a nonprofit, educational arts workforce development program. And we started back in 2010, doing college tours, bringing educational career forums to the campuses of HBCUs. And at the time, they were so successful that President Obama's team reached out and said, hey, we heard about what you're doing. We'd love to help expand you to our stakeholders, help you reach more of the HBCUs. And I said, awesome, let's do it. And so, at the time, I'm never satisfied with status quo. I wasn't satisfied with partners, big companies coming, draping a table, but students were not getting opportunities. So after meeting the White House team, I invited them to come to LA to meet the industry. And we had a chance during that discussion with industry leaders to talk about what I have been doing in terms of boots on the ground. And then the president's team obviously talked about the White House initiative, which, by the way, has been an executive order that's been signed into office since Jimmy Carter's day. So it's not new to President Obama, but that was the office that I began my relationship with, which honored, right? It's not every day that you get a call from the executive office of the president. So, and I still didn't believe them until I saw the email that had eop.gov. And I was like, oh, I think it really is real. But at any rate, after that meeting of having them come here, we realized that there were barriers. Geographically, HBCUs are not in the industry's backyard, like a UCLA or a USC, or even schools that have satellite campuses like NYU or Emerson's of the world. So I said, why don't I do an HBCU in LA internship program where we can bring students across the country from HBCUs to Los Angeles for an immersive 10-week internship experience and give them educational, professional development workshops, have them go on tours, have them working behind the scenes of the industry with major studios, networks, and so on. And that's what we launched. And that was in 2017. So we just wrapped our 5th summer, which is crazy to believe.
Congratulations.
But we have just wrapped up that summer and hosted our largest cohort to date. We had 58 to 60 students over the course of the summer being paid for remote internships, which is phenomenal. And now is extending that program to go year round from a remote engagement, so that now students that are in school are still able to gain internship experience, build their resumes, make them more marketable for careers in this industry. So HBCU in LA was born, and we're so excited about it, and that's what it is. So I'm excited to tell you.
Oh my gosh, I'm just so inspired. I love that I so much, because I always wanted to go to an HBCU. I went away for undergrad in New York, and then I came back to PWI out here in LA. But it never happened. I still have my doctorate to look forward to, and it might be an HBCU. But still, the experience that we see just in media, and just now I have friends who had gone to HBCUs, and we had a couple episodes discussing it, and it's just an experience that I missed. But why is it so important that you started this program that would kind of engage them and give them all these opportunities?
So it started because I had written a book called Leveraging Up, the Key to Launching Your Entertainment Career. And I went on a national book tour to colleges and universities across the country. And it wasn't until I ended up on the campus of HBCUs and I would throw out industry lingo, terminology, and it was like deer in headlight. And it was then that I realized that there was a major disconnect. And I would just say, oh, by show of hands, how many major studios or networks have ever come to your campus? And I would name names and no hands would go up, right? And I was like, you know what? So my last leg of the trip, I've wrapped up a bunch of schools in Boston. I'm coming back on a plane. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do an HBCU college tour and ask the industry, put your money where your mouth is. Join me on campus. Let's bring some educational career forums and talk about the industry as a whole, not just talk about the writing, acting, directing, and producing. Let's talk about the infrastructure of jobs that exist across this industry and reach multi-majors instead of just the film schools and the communication school. Why aren't we talking to the business schools? Why aren't we talking to the computer science engineering students? All of this exists in the industry. So,
you wonder why I called you pastor earlier. You back on the pulpit.
So that's where it all started. And so it was a result of that book and seeing the disconnect between the HBCUs and our industry. And so I wanted to figure out a way to bridge the gap. And that's why I chose. And even I got a lot of pushback, talk about your challenges. I got a lot of pushback. Why HBCU? It doesn't sound inclusive enough, like you're including other institutions. And I'm like, who has ever advocated specifically from an industry standpoint for HBCUs. So I'm like, look, I'm flexible with the name, but it has to have HBCU first and foremost.
Mhm.
So that's what I did.
Here for it all day long, all day long. So since we're both kind of working in like the diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging space, what do you think is like the main ingredient for addressing some of these like major issues with just, we're not getting these opportunities where we we literally are just not exposed to everything,
Right.
and it's a
Um,
setback when we try to enter these fields.
yeah. I mean, I think, doing programs like what we're doing is what is necessary and what is needed, because we can't wait for the industry to figure it out. We have to bring it to them. And then we literally have to hold their hand to the fire, right? And say, okay, and for me, with the HBCU in LA program, we have on average about 2,000 students that apply for this program. Now, keep in mind, we only have 30 spots to fill. And that's because we have to provide them and cover their housing expenses. They don't have to pay to live here for the summer, and they get paid for an internship. So, we want to expand that number to more as we continue to grow. But, it's like we have to remove the barriers and bring the talent. So we aggregate that talent for them. So we're a great resource. They're not traipsing all over the country, going to the HBCUs. We're doing that with doing college outreach, which, by the way, we launched our fall HBCU in LA virtual college tour. So we're on tour now. So, and then our application is already opened. It opens September 10th. It'll close December 20th. So if you want more information, go to eicop.org and click on the intern information. So you'll learn all about the program. But I think it's doing these types of programs and bringing the talent, vetting the talent, but also helping to educate the talent. So when I'm on campus, I bring a workshop, and that workshop is about how to show up in these spaces, what your resume needs to look like, how to conduct yourself in an interview. So I think we have to also not only say, hey, we want opportunity, but we need to get the opportunity and bring the talent prepared and equipped to step into the opportunities that we push the door open for.
And you know what? That passion really drives it home. Like when I was in the very beginning stages of the Ash Academy, someone asked me, why don't you just go volunteer at someone else's organization? And it's like, I bring something different that I want to do and I need to do, and that's not just going somewhere else. And there's no problem if someone wants to go. We have volunteers every day. Like I need someone to see my vision and say, okay, I want to get on board. But like all the people you've impacted, like 2,000 people are applying to something that's super impactful. There's a need for that. So I'm excited to contribute and help in any way that we can. We will definitely put all of your links in the description box to make sure people can go ahead and apply and get in where they fit in on that.
Absolutely. No, and to have that many students, but then again, we built that audience, right? So from 2010 until we launched in 2017, we were on campus. And I have to say, for organizations that are partnering with us to make that commitment to come on campus, because in a lot of cases, it's the first time that a lot of these industry representatives have ever been on the campus of an HBCU. And so it speaks volumes to institution leadership, and it speaks volumes to the students. I remember our first HBCU college tour. We were in Atlanta with the three schools there. What is it? Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta. And we were there on campus. We had standing room only. I think there were 400 students packed into the Woodruff Library. And we had students afterwards coming up, and it was for the first time they had seen around the perimeter of the room all these notable companies, right? And I remember them coming up to me at the end of the session, and literally some of them in tears, like, will they consider our HBCU education enough? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, will they hire us? I'm like, yeah, they're looking for you. And they just, sobbing, some of them. And so I was determined, after I would check and say, hey, did anybody get an internship after those tours? And I was hearing no. And then I'd hear, well, they made an offer, but they can't afford to live here. And I'm like, okay, move that barrier. We'll figure out how to get some housing. But yeah, it's yeah. So I could go on and on, but that's why I do what I do.
That's so amazing. I so appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Now, what does success mean to you?
Oh, well, I thought about that answer. It's impact. Success is impact. It is not dollars, right?
Mm,
You can equate things, put value on it based on, I just don't. It's about impact. It's about seeing a vision come to life, see, dreaming something and then walking in it. Like that's success. Regardless if what it becomes, if in the next 5 years I'm not doing this, I still had success because I impact the lives of a lot of students. A lot of young people are now thriving in this business because I took the risk, I stepped out, and I did it. So to me, success is impact and achieving, seeing a vision come to life. And other than that, you know, yeah, all those other things, they come, they're fleeting, they come,
okay.
they go. But to change a life, to make a difference, like that's success. Yeah.
Absolutely. You're not going to get me crying on the show. You won't do it. Not today. So
Oh, come
after
on.
after all of the work, aside from that, what brings you joy? So no work related, no impact related answers. Like,
What brings me joy? Oh my goodness. First of all, my children. Um, and then the children of the program. To hear, to see my own kids, you know, happy, content, taking risks like their mom demonstrated for them to take risks. Because I have one kid in particular who's kind of like, okay, I don't need to be in this job no more. Like I ain't happy here. I know it's stupid to just leave when you don't have a job, but go babe, do it.
sometimes you got to get
But
up and go.
you got to get
Sometimes.
up and go. So but my children bring me the greatest joy, honestly. And then the children, I shouldn't call them children, but the kids that I impact in this program, to hear those kids come to me and say, I got the job, or I sold my first project, or I can't believe where I am. Like I had a student call me for my birthday and say, Mama Stacy, today's my first day on the set of Grey's Anatomy. I'm like, what? And she's like, I have you to thank for that. I would not be here if it wasn't for you. And it's funny because that young lady was a part of the cohort when we had the students and we had a visit at Shondaland. And so they got to meet like all the team. And now here we are, a few years later, and she's actually a PA on Grey's Anatomy. And, it's those types of things like you get, I get overjoyed when it comes to that. So those are the things that bring me joy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now you did throw in some work now. You said this, my kids and other kids. So
Yep, yep,
wonderful,
yep.
wonderful, wonderful. All right. I think this is a perfect time to segue into our final line of questioning. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. Who is your biggest inspiration?
My mama. My mother, I was raised by a single parent, a single strong Black woman who raised 5 kids and taught us that whatever you want to do, as long as you're willing to put in the work, you can achieve it. And dream as big as you want to dream. I just so respect her. I mean, we were poor. I mean, poor. And I never thought I was poor because this woman made sure we had food on the table. We had a few nickels in our pocket. We could always go to the candy store and get a little candy, get a bag of chips or something. But I just never felt that way. I mean, you know, she was just such a strong woman. And I immensely appreciate her. And I give her all credit for who I am because she was my example.
Beautiful,
My mama.
beautiful. Wonderful. Now, we heard a little about it earlier, but who do you hope to uplift with your work?
I'll say it this way: underrepresented talent. You know, with the work that I'm doing, but specifically for them to lead, become leaders, and be the next generation leaders to lead this global creative economy. That's what I hope to be able to uplift and to impact. I grew up in this business. This is the business I worked in my entire life. And I know that there's space for more people like me. But we need to come alongside of those young people and show them the roadmap, right? Tell them no, like regardless of how hard it may be, how impossible it may look, you can do this. And if you look at anybody, it's somebody who came along, whether it was a mentor or someone, and gave them the wings to fly. And that's what it's about for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, how do you stay engaged with your motivation? Like, what keeps you going?
First and foremost, I stay in the Word of God.
Hallelujah.
I know. Look, it is about knowing that He makes His grace to abound toward me, so that I will have all sufficiency in all things and an abundance for this good work. That motivates me when I'm having that down day. Okay, either it's true or it's not. So pick yourself up, keep going. But that is my motivation. And knowing that what I do, because it's not for me, this is what I do is for others. I get more joy. I just want to give to other people. And that's what motivates me. That's what drives me to do what I'm doing. And sometimes, you know, my husband is like, well, honey, like you need to make money too. And I'm like, yeah, but if I get money, I want money so that I can continue to impact lives. It's not for me, it's so I can be of good and value to others. But also just knowing that, you know, what I do is I don't have to do it in my own strength. I have an inner strength, and that's my motivation, and that gets me up every day. That keeps me going. That makes me somewhat a workaholic, which probably isn't good because the team tries to shut me down sometimes. I'm like, well, just one more, and that's just me. So
As a recovering,
I'm gonna make it happen.
As a recovering workaholic who is not doing all the work to stop being one, I see you, I feel you, I hear you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, look, somebody told me something really good, and they said, you know, Stacy, don't beat yourself up. You had an infant that you had to nurture, right? And when you think about, you know, nurturing something from, you know, its beginning to getting it to stand on its own, it takes a lot. And I used to beat myself up and go, girl, like, shut it down a minute. Like, you need to take a break. But I'm like, no, I had to make sure that baby didn't fall. But the baby is toddler stage now. So I'm trying to get better about my work-life balance.
Absolutely. And now I don't know if we're at a toddler status yet, but you know, I really would love to find some balance as well. But that's just that's an endless journey, you know.
It's coming. It's coming. That's what I tell myself too. It's
But
coming.
yes,
I'm
it
getting a
is.
little bit better.
But something
Yeah.
you said about that endless energy or like the strength that comes from like beyond you, I very much so feel that way in this work, especially with the Ash
Mhm.
Academy. Like even if I'm burnt out or even if I am exhausted and should not, at all times I'm thinking of the next thing that will impact someone else, because the work is not for me. Although I am fulfilled and joyful when
Exactly.
someone is impacted, it is for the person on the other side that sends that email saying thank you for being there for us. Like all of those things, that's what I do it for. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I hear you.
Oh my goodness. So what is next for you? I know you gave us some
Ooh,
deadlines and things that are coming up that have already been released, but any events that we can stay in contact with you about?
yes. So we will be launching on September 28th. We are going to announce that we have a new entertainment law and policy year-long fellowship that we are launching for students, diverse students who are recent graduates from college, university, law schools, who have an interest in law and policy. So we're really excited about that. And that will launch, like I said, it launches on the 28th and the application will close December 30th. So that's what's next. I'm really excited. It's our first year-long program. And so it's going to be amazing.
Well, I'm
That's about
excited
it.
for you because so I told you about that doctorate, but I still want to get my JD. It is something that's calling out to me. I was in the middle of my MBA, like, okay, the next step is to get that JD for no one other than me. I am so
Wow.
interested in law, especially like entertainment law, for it to make sense for my background, but like something in me is saying get that JD. I'm like, who is gonna pay for all these degrees?
You can
Sally
do it.
Mae
Just
is asking for the
worry about that
coins.
later.
I appreciate that. You know what, Stacy,
Oh,
I am so glad that we finally got a conversation together, because this was so fulfilling to me. You're lifting me up. You weren't even
oh.
trying, just sharing.
Well,
So thank
you
you so
you know
much.
you know how to reach me, and I can always be there. But I want to say this about this law and policy fellowship program. As I said, it's a year long, but
Mhm.
the selected fellows will spend 3 months in LA when we launch our HBCU in LA Summer 22 program. Then they will spend 3 months in DC with congressional and on the, you know,
Wow.
DC government side.
Mhm.
And then they come back and spend 6 months with one of the member studios. So it's going to be an amazing opportunity for someone. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I am not eligible, but I will be cheering on the people that are going in my place.
And by the way, we're like making it open for students who graduated 2020, spring 2020, from spring 2020 to spring 2022. So if you've been out and you passed the bar, but you're still waiting, this is a program you probably want to get in on. So yeah,
All right, all you law students, recent grads, come on down. This
that's
is a
it.
beautiful
That's it.
opportunity.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Awesome.
Stacey, thank you so much
Oh,
for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
I know. We got to talk more often.
Yeah.
We got
Oh
to talk more
yes. Oh
often.
yeah.
We got so much in
When we
common.
stop recording, we still gonna be talking, y'all. Don't think this isn't
Thank you
one of
for
those run
having
off the
me.
line. Absolutely, everyone. This was another episode of the Ash Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. I got some other business to talk to Stacy about, but y'all take care. We we will talk to you soon. All right. All right. Bye.